This is Mitch, and welcome to the 1000houses.com podcast. I got stuck at the ranch waiting on a delivery, didn't make it back to my studio. So I called Max. I said, hey, I hope this doesn't offend you. I can do this from my truck, but if it's not what you want, we could reschedule. He had the attitude that I supposed that he was going to have. He said, we adapt, we overcome, we get it done. The point is to accomplish the mission. So we're going to deliver some good information here. And I want to thank you, Max, for indulging me as I ride down the highway at 85 miles an hour, interviewing you. Thank God I have a driver. Hey, say hi, Mike.
Hey, what's up?
What's happening, Willie? Awesome. Yeah. Hey, I'm looking forward to it. We're going to have fun.
Yeah. So let's kick this off with a little bit about your background, and then I'll explain, how I met you and kind of what I've been doing with you. But then I really want to get on this topic on this housing disruption and what's going on. And how we're to look at it. And then you have an event coming up, and I'll let you explain some of that and see if the people here are interested in where this economy is going, because it's definitely going somewhere. We're going to give you our best guesses, okay? But that's all they are, is guesses. So,
right.
Tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get into real estate? How did you find your financial independence? Those are the kind of things that this podcast is about. So start there,
Sure. Yeah. Well, real estate, it was accidentally. I was actually teaching math. I was an algebra teacher and coach at a Title I school up here in Dallas, Fort Worth, where I live. I had no plans of leaving teaching. I loved it. It was actually kind of funny. I go to the teacher's lounge to eat my lunch sometimes, and it felt like everybody was complaining about the students except for me. Now I go fast forward 6 years later, I'm the only one who left. So it makes no sense, but I love teaching. I loved it. It was fun. The kids are just super real and they needed help, and I love math. So it was like a natural fit. The only problem was my family was growing and my income really wasn't growing. I either had to become a principal or do something else. So I was just trying to get like a side hustle, and I was wanting to partner with people because I just like to work with other people. And everybody was like, yeah, I want to do something. And then when it got time to actually do something, they didn't want to do it anymore. It was a lot of excuses, and I've just never made excuses. So I was looking for something. And my friend went on vacation. This was July 2015. He said, I bought a rent house. And I was like, you bought a rent house? And he worked for the government. He said, his pay was pretty much locked in. He had a big family like mine. He's like, I got to do something. And so I started looking into it. And it only took me a couple months of learning. You were actually one of the folks that I was watching back then. So although we work together now, I'm still a fan. And
great.
Yeah, I was watching your stuff, and I'd be watching some other people's stuff, and I was learning. And then, anyways, my first deal was a wholesale deal. I made about 16 grand on it, and that was December 2015. And then I just started doing active deals, and that
first deal's a big one, though, isn't it? I just wanted to jump in there. That first one, whether you make 2,000 or you make 16,000, it's just the proof of concept, right? So important.
Yeah, and I really have been trying to prove the concept for 8 years. I wanted to start back in actually more than that, like 10 years. I tried to start real estate in 2005, went to a couple boot camps and seminars, but I just couldn't put the pieces together. We started having a family, and I don't know, it didn't seem like the right time. But I had more motivation when I was older. And so I just took that motivation, ran with it. I saw that I could make more active income. So I left my job about 5 years ago today from this recording, and just started going full time and, never looked back. It was a great way. The fastest way that I've been able to grow my passive income and my true wealth is by, dramatically increasing my active income. Saving a few $1,000s a year, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just like, it could take, till you're 70 or 80 to have any freedom. With real estate, I've been able to just have a lot larger chunks of money that I can put aside and save. And I'm not working any harder than when I was a teacher. That's a hard job too. It's just some things pay more in our economy. And like you said, it's all about getting that first deal. And once you get that, it's about, building the consistency. And I'm just thankful that I've been able to, do both, so far.
So I wanted to bring something up that just kind of popped in my head while you were talking.
Yeah.
For the first time in a lot of people's lives, when they're thinking about going into creative real estate investing or any new adventure,
right.
It is really a blessing if you don't make a whole lot of money, because it doesn't take a whole lot to replace your income, so for once in your life, not making a lot of money can actually kind of work in your favor when you're trying to get free doing another job. But when I started, I only made like $35,000 a year. It only took a couple of wholesale deals, and I had a whole year in the bank, and I could walk away from my job and go, okay, I'm just going to keep living like I was, not planning on making any extra money at all. But I got 1 year to see what I could do. Well, that was 27 years ago, but in exceeded my wildest expectations. But I was just that idea that if you're out there and you're not making a lot of money and you're trying to find something, it might be one of your greatest assets is that you've been functioning and living a real condensed lifestyle because you've been, that's how you've been doing it all this time. And if you'll just keep that mindset as you go into your entrepreneurialism, it's really an asset to, those people that are making $350,000, $400,000 a year, and then they want to become their own boss. This is another problem. This is a bigger problem because usually someone makes $300,000 a year or $400,000 a year, their lifestyle's up to that level. And it's hard to take things away from the kids and the wife and all that stuff, say, we're going to try something new here. And they're like, no, we're not,
Yeah.
You're going to keep working, And so you jumped out, you did some wholesale deals, you found a new viable source of income that probably exceeded your teaching career by a lot, right?
Yeah, actually, to your exact point. So I was netting with a master's degree, teacher of the year, 7 years experience. I was netting after all the insurance and everything about $3,400 a month. And then my wife was working at our church. What was cool about teaching was a couple of things. One of them is exactly what you said. I wasn't making a ton. So replacing that wasn't, astronomically difficult. I'll tell you how easy it was. So we got paid as teachers. Our contracts are September to September. So I got paid during the summer, 5 years ago this summer, for 3 months. The first month that I didn't get a teacher check, we always got paid on the 20th. And it was September 20th of 2016. That was the first month I didn't have a teacher check. I had finished a fix and flip. It was a pretty simple one that we did. One of my first larger full-size ones. But it was still pretty much cosmetic. And the net profit on the bottom of the HUD one was $34,000. We closed on September 20th. So my first month without a teacher check for 7 years. Most people who get consistent money, that consistency, it makes you comfortable, and then you don't make a change. I just sort of have a wiring I like to, take risks and, try stuff. And I've always been entrepreneurial. So boy, did that work out. 10 months of pay. Now, my taxes have been taken out, so that's gross compared to that. No.
Don't split hairs here. The point was, you damn near bought yourself a whole nother year. So,
Exactly.
So the gun's away from your head. It's like, it'll be okay, honey. It'll be okay.
Yeah.
Was your wife on board with all this, or was the spouse scared and trying to get you to hold on, or was she or was she 100% in? Because my experience is most of the time it's the other half that's really scared.
Yeah, she was amazing. I mean, we had just had our 5th daughter. So, I mean, she had Sarah in September. And then literally 2 weeks later, I'm interviewing and working for free at night for a guy in our local market that has a lot of experience, and it has a club and just is been doing this for a while. So she definitely could have used me at home raising 5 girls, all under the age of 10 at the time. So she was super supportive. And I'm not sure when it really solidified, but I think probably when I got that first check, it was proof of concept. But she's just always been super supportive. So I'm really lucky in that way. And she's real thrifty too. So we were living below our means, even when I was just as a teacher. I didn't know anything about money, honestly. It's embarrassing to say. I majored in finance at a good college, but I didn't really understand personal finance like a lot of people. And so I went through the Dave Ramsey stuff at our church. Then I started teaching it. So we went from being 60 grand in debt to, being no debt and having 30 grand extra and perfect credit. And so all of those things they weren't deal breakers. I think I would have been successful even without that, but it just helped accelerate it and gave more cushion. So I think that made it easier.
Let's talk about this a second. I mean, Dave Ramsey and that whole dichotomy kind of a little bit different than, kind of goes against the grain of a lot of leveraging and buying rent property. How did you reconcile those two worlds?
Yeah, I saw it sort of like first half, second half. So for me, it just when I had lower debt burden, like you said, kind of keeping your costs low. Well, that applies to debt service too. And so when I started doing that, and it's just like my monthly amount that I needed was just really, really low. And so that actually helped accelerate my ability to make up for that income. Yeah, the way that he looks at debt and leverage, here's the thing. I feel like it's good advice for most people. And
yes.
If you're an entrepreneur, it's just, there's a different class after that. There's a master's degree kind of thing. And that's sort of just like laying the foundation. But just having that foundation made it really easy. But I'll tell you, I wouldn't have been able to save my way to, the rentals and the buy and hold stuff. It would have taken till I was 300 years old. So I'm still like having leverage, obviously. But yeah, doing it the right way. But I think Dave kind of says, I think he says the first half is right, which is like having leverage as in like a bunch of credit card debt for stuff you can't afford. Not a great idea. I would agree with that. But but having leverage on a property, especially in these inflationary times, having hard assets, that's kind of a different thing. So,
Yeah. Dave Ramsey would have rolled over in the grave if he'd have met me when I was starting out. I had amassed 50 credit cards, and I could get like $400,000 on my kitchen table at 0% introductory offer. It was not unusual on any given day for me to have $250,000 worth of credit card debt. But I had all these houses that were worth twice as much as I paid for them, free and clear, and I didn't have any payments because the introductory offer on these cards was 6-12 months no payments, or we pay them back. And so I actually almost got me a divorce because I had spent all this time getting my entrepreneurial skin thick enough to understand that this was all right to do. Not only was it all right, it was damn near brilliant. But trying to explain that to someone who still views credit card debt as bad, and then here I was, I got caught with $250,000 worth of credit card debt, and I'm like, calm down, honey, calm down. I have $500,000 worth of houses that we don't have any payments on over here. Just, it's all going to work out, I actually had to go to counseling, counseling. So I'm at the counselor's, and she tells her side of the story of how I'm gambling with our lives. And then I start to tell my side of the story about how I'm looking at it, that, I know this thing's worth twice as much when I bought it because I got the comps. I can look right at them.
Right.
By the middle of the conversation, he wants to loan me his money. And that was the end of my wife walked out of when she figured out that he was thinking about investing with me, she walked out of the session, and that was the end of my marriage counseling.
That's too funny.
No, that's a true story. You can't make this up.
For me, the financial part hasn't really been a strain at all for our family. Even, the risk, all of it. The biggest strain has been probably the hours. Part of it is like self-imposed because I just love what I do. So I could literally do this all day. I think about it all the time. I'm just like totally obsessed with real estate. I love it. And then the other part is that, being an entrepreneur, I mean, especially as you're building out your team, any new stuff that you're doing, it takes time, and so I think that's the biggest thing I've had to work on is just making sure that, I'm not having success in my real estate career, just, at the, and then not spending the time with my family too. So that's, and like I said, most of that.
Yeah, you have a big family, but that comes down to the other part that every entrepreneur gets to is, there's got to be a balance between the work, the money, and the play. And I was very bad at that. I burned my candle at both ends for a long time and didn't get systems or figure out or even want to figure out systems until I almost didn't have any energy left, which was a bad place to be. But I did finally figure it out. Sure. So, I just want to tell the audience, I have a relationship with Max Keller and his company, Savior Publishing, because you guys have been real instrumental in helping me put out a fourth book that I'm going to be putting out, shortly. And we can talk about that a little bit in the future. But, I've written 3 books before I met you. And the first thing I learned, I never meant to write a book. I never wanted to write a book. No one in my circle would have ever dreamed that I'd written a book. And if you'd have told them I was going to write a book, they would have fallen out of their chair like they did when I did. But I had something tragic happen, and I started journaling.
Mm-hmm.
And then, long story short, it got made into a book with some help with some people that saw it, read it, and they helped me make it into a book. And so I had this book out that I never really intended to write. And the first thing that struck me was the amount of credibility people just handed me, because I was at the bottom of that book said that I was the author of this 400-page book. And talk to us about books and credibility.
Yeah, I didn't know. I would have been voted dead last in my high school class to read a book, let alone write a book. I never would have imagined that in a million years. I have dyslexia and a bunch of ADHD and all this stuff. So just writing a book, it just would seem totally impossible. It happened to me out of a challenge. So 2017, I left my job. I'm on track to do about 30 deals for the year. I'm building out a little office. I have some people helping me, systems, the team, all of that. But literally the marketing was it felt like a total rat race. I was doing all the same marketing everybody else was doing. I was doing the cold calling. I was doing the yellow letters. I was, mailing to every list that I could get my hands on. And if I didn't have a lot of leads coming in, I wouldn't get deals. And if I didn't have deals, I wouldn't have a business. And financially speaking, it just wouldn't have ever made sense to go back to teaching, once you kind of see the other side. So I had to make it work. So my mindset and how I got into books, as I did it the wrong way first. So the first thing I did wrong was when the marketing wasn't going as well, I just did more of it. And then eventually I wised up. I was like, well, this isn't going to work. Like, what's the problem here? And the problem was I was sending out the same messages that hundreds of other wholesalers, fix and flippers were sending. And a lot of them had bigger budgets than me. And it just kind of felt like a roll of the dice. I mean, people were definitely still choosing me, but, sometimes they weren't. And so what I did was I was actually thinking about maybe just doing something different. You get to that point where it's just feels like a grind and you're like, what am I doing here? And here's what I did. I made a list of the 3 most important things for me. And what made a lot of sense for me for a deal was I wanted to do deals that made a good profit. I wanted to do deals that I actually the seller wasn't resisting me, like they actually wanted my help. And I wanted to work with people that, were good to work with. And I felt like I was really, helping. They weren't calling me to bail them out of jail or screaming at me on the phone drunk or, I don't really want to do that. And for me, I found out most of my deals that I was doing didn't meet all 3 criteria. That's why I was miserable. But the ones that did all pointed to the same niche, and that was seniors. And so when I found out seniors was a really good for me, my grandma helped take care of me. So I've always been around seniors. I like working with them. And they were just back to what you were saying about credibility and trust. I found that seniors were really slow to trust, but when they did, they were really, really loyal. I was getting offers accepted and I was like 10 grand less than other people in my market in Dallas, Fort Worth. And the reason was because for these folks, they felt like I genuinely cared about them, which I do. And they trusted me. And that was more important than, just 10 grand. And so how I got into books, I actually got the idea from a seller. I was at a house. I was doing the purchase agreement, and the adult child of the senior that I bought the house and helped place at a senior living home, the adult daughter was like, hey, you've helped our family out a ton. You know a lot about this. You should write a book about it. And I was like, a book? No, I'm not. That's like nobody ever said that. That was like the furthest thing from my mind. I was reading a lot because I had noticed in my masterminds, a lot of the folks were reading and they were getting great ideas from that. So I was reading more than I ever had, but I definitely didn't know how to write a book. So I kind of brushed it off. And then I was like, that's a pretty good idea. I could go from exactly what you said. I could go from the person who knows a lot about senior housing. I had a good reputation in my local area, but then I could be the guy who wrote the book on senior housing. So all I did was I just wrote down all the questions, sellers were asking me, all the questions that, they should ask, they just don't know to ask. I wrote down all the ways to sell your house, pros and cons of each method. And, if my market wasn't so competitive, I probably would have never written the book if I had known how long it would have taken to write it. I probably never would have, but I'm obviously glad I did. It changed a lot of things for me. And I just, my first book was called Home to Home, the step-by-step senior housing guide. And I just printed out 100 copies when I got it done. I started handing it out to people. I didn't worry about, oh, are they going to think the writing's perfect? Because I wrote it from the standpoint of helping them, just like I was on their, flower print couches from the 78 Sears catalog for 4 hours. It was the same conversation that I was having with these seniors for 4 hours. It was just in the book, and I wasn't worried about trying to make it perfect because it wasn't about me. It was about the other person. And what happened was unbelievable stuff. Like, I just was trying to give it out to people. I thought maybe some people would pass it around to their friends. And then, people would already kind of have their questions answered. I didn't know about all the superpowers. I didn't know about how you could give somebody a book. They literally start trusting you almost immediately. I didn't know about all that. I didn't know how people don't throw your book away. We just had a lady call us and we did a workshop at a church, which, by the way, the churches were not letting me do workshops when I was a sleazy shark real estate investor. Which I'm not, but when I would call them up and say, hey, can I come and teach your audience and do like a little workshop? I used to be a teacher in HEB ISD, and they're like, what do you do again? I'm like, I'm a real estate investor. They're like, no, thanks. But then when I call and I have a book, they're like, oh, wow, an author? Come on in. So it just had all these like crazy benefits. And then my friends started asking me if they could use my book. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know how to do that. And they're like, well, you're not buying houses in Florida. You're not buying houses in San Antonio. Can you just change it out a little bit and personalize it so I can use it? And we wrote some more books, and now we have 3 systems, about to have 4. We license them to investors all over the country. And then we have a new program that's coming out that's super exciting. And it's a certification program. It's called Certified Housing Educator. And it's about teaching folks who maybe aren't ready for their own book, but they still want to deliver more value to their audience. We teach them how to do that. I'm basically the teacher of the teachers, and we're positioning ourselves in such a way to where people see us not as just a transactional real estate person, but because this disruption is messing up a lot of people's businesses right now, we want to position ourselves differently. And so that's what we do. And I just never could have imagined it. I'll tell you what, when I used to watch your videos 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I still do. But when I first started watching your videos, I never could have imagined that we'd be on this call together and we'd be doing a book together. It's just, you never know. You just keep working at it. You keep getting 1% better every day. You just it's open, endless possibilities. It really is.
Yeah. So I'm coming out with a book called The Art of Private Lending.
Cool.
And I'm teaching people how, with Max's support and help, I'm licensing some of the stuff that he's already written, so I don't have to write the whole damn thing myself. I read the book. It's dead on. If I was going to say it, I couldn't say it any better. I agreed with everything in it. And then we just personalized it. I got my own cover. I'm coming out with a book, in short order compared to the first 3 books that I wrote. Writing a book is like the hardest thing I think I've ever done. And I don't know why I went back and did it 3 times after the first time, but it's because of what it brings you after you're finished. You always, if I can finish this book, it's going to make a lot of difference, not just for me, but for the people around me. Yeah. And so I'm really excited for that to come out. And, you make it really easy, and the stuff is so well written on the topics. But now about this disruption you're talking about. Yeah, we're talking about a disruption in a population and in a housing industry, and it crosses all lines. It's called the baby boomers. Right. They're retiring. I don't know. Last I heard it was like 10,000 a month or 10,000 a day, or I don't remember. It was humongous. But you got to understand this first and foremost about the baby boomer generation. It's what happened after all those men came back from World War II. Mm-hmm. They were ready to make babies and have families, and that population explosion, if you look at it on a graph or whatever, the best way to describe it is It's like a basketball passing through a garden hose. It just changes everything. When they're kids, it changes the way babies and diapers and everyone's trying to sell to this massive population. And then as they become young adults, then they have different needs. And so the whole industry for, say, like 6-year-olds and 8-year-olds starts to change. And then as they got their driver's license, people manufactured cars, especially for them. These people are all turning this age. If we're going to be anybody in business, we got to accommodate these people. So you're talking about now all these baby boomers are turning, they're senior citizens now. They're getting old. They're dying. They're, and with this becomes change. And whenever there's change, there's chaos, and so they're causing this massive amount of chaos because they're ceasing to be able to function and or they're ceasing to be alive. And this causes drastic change. I like that saying. It's an anonymous, wealth comes from chaos. And while that can be taken in a way where you're like you're grave dancing or you're a buzzard sitting on a highline wire waiting for something to die, these people are going to pass, or they're going to go through these phases with or without you. And someone's got to have to deal with the property. Someone has to deal with the businesses that they're leaving behind. Someone has to deal with the farmland and the ranch land and the everything, because someone has to deal with it, and it might as well be you. The question is, and that's what I like about you, Max, is can you do it in a way where you're helping them accomplish what they need to and still get what you need out of it? And that's what I like about your approach. Yeah. So talk to us about this undulation in this market.
Yeah, great. Yeah. So there's really two disruptions going on at the same time, and where they intersect, I believe is, if not the most, like the top 3 most opportunity for real estate investors, agents, and brokers in the next 20 years. So the first part of what you said is exactly right. 65,000 people are turning 10,000, 10,000 people are turning 65 every day in America. So that's a tremendous amount of people. The fastest growing age group in America is actually 85 plus. So that's 4,000 people a day. So, I got to share a stage with Harry Dent, who wrote the book, The Demographic Cliff. And what he said in it is if you want to follow the economy, it's really actually pretty simple. People do very predictable things as they age. What somebody does and how they spend and how they interact with their environment and the economy when they're 20 and 40 and 60, those ages, they're people within that age group just do very similar things. And so, do you want to work with the fastest growing, market or the smallest growing? I want to work with the fastest growing, and I already like working with those folks anyway. So for me, that's kind of a no-brainer. The other disruption that's happening at the same time is Wall Street. So Wall Street has a major appetite for single family homes. And since the last downturn, the 2008 downturn, they've bought up, about 200,000 single family homes in good neighborhoods, nice neighborhoods in San Antonio and Dallas and all over the country. And they figured out how to get them to produce. And what's interesting about Wall Street is they have a tremendous amount of money. Their money is much cheaper than a local real estate investors. And they have a lot of money to invest in marketing. Wall Street's investing billions of dollars in companies that never are even profitable. And if we're getting double digit, internal rates of returns on decently managed single family homes, any amount of yield that they can get that's more than zero is going to be exciting. And this isn't a new phenomenon. It is, as far as the single family home. There used to be a time, if we go back further enough, like when those people got back from the war, World War II, apartments weren't all controlled by big companies. They were local partnerships. People would get together and do these. But then, Wall Street and big hedge funds and things like that started to come in and get more involved in apartments. They've owned high-rise buildings and they've owned hotels. But until 2008, they haven't really owned a lot of single family.
Storage facilities. They're buying up storage facilities.
Yeah, anywhere that they can get a yield. And so the problem is, and a lot of people see these If they don't see the Wall Street companies in their market, the forward facing part is iBuyers, and these iBuyers are paying cash, they're closing quickly, and their money comes from Wall Street. And so the money's a lot cheaper. They have a lot of it. I read an article recently where Zillow is on pace. Their goal is to purchase 5,000 homes per month. And how they plan on doing it is, number one, they're attracting 157 million people to their website. Local investors can't compete with that. They're making an average profit on their fix and flips of $1,723. You, me, and nobody listening here is going to go and flip a house, put 30 grand in, and make $1,700. And so they're really trying to grab market share. And during the last downturn, a lot of the hedge funds and iBuyers, they disappeared because their only exit was fix and flip. And when the market tanks, it's harder to make that strategy work. But now they know how to make these single family homes cash flow. And rentals are 1 in 3 homes in America. It's a growing segment. And so this creates a huge problem for real estate investors, agents, and brokers who are just seen as a transactional real estate person. Because if somebody wants a transactional real estate person, they can go to their phone and find about 50 people in every market in the United States that can pay a lot more money than you probably can. And so, especially a cash price. And so what are people going to do? And, we're going to have a training that's coming up where we're going to go deeper, but essentially here's our hypothesis and what we've proven for the last 3 years. Everybody talks about how, and there's different numbers, but some people say 95% of people sell their home traditionally through a real estate agent, and 5% sell to an investor. What people are not going the next level is within that 5%, there's always going to be a percentage of people in every market that will pay more to have somebody walk them through a complicated situation, to have somebody hold their hand along the way. And so what we've done with our books, with our content, with our certifications, is we've figured out how to pivot from being the transactional house person that in a price war that you cannot beat Wall Street in, to being the trusted expert, the non-fiduciary housing advisor. This is a huge void because most people don't have CPAs on speed dial. They don't have tax planning attorneys on speed dial. They're regular people who were bus drivers or teachers or police officers. They retired. They got a little pension, Social Security, maybe they own their house outright, and they haven't planned for all this kind of stuff. And so what we did was I took the Dave Ramsey model, which I liked his education, and we created education to educate these folks out there, this huge growing number of people through our different book systems. And by educating them, it attracts them to us because we're showing people all their options, not just the ones that make us money, and we're showing people the pros and cons because there's pros and cons to everything. And in return for that, they see us differently. They know they're not getting the absolute best price, but there's always a segment of the market that's not their number one concern. And so that's who we focus on. It's a large group of people. And right now, I can't find anybody else in our market that's serving them. So that's what we're doing. And that's what I've figured out how to do with the help of our community.
So you're actually overcoming price with some kind of service and personal touch.
Yes.
Which you're going to always win your share when you give service and personal touch, even if you're not the cheapest guy or willing to pay the most,
Right.
Whatever the case may be. So I get it. So you're talking about, you have a book where you go out and you educate seniors or family members who are in charge of seniors,
Right.
like how to make this transition from the home that they lived in over to the senior assisted living or memory care or whatever it is they need, and all the pieces in the middle and how it works. And you help them through probably one of the most emotional, difficult times in both of those families' lives. The family member that's getting older and the family member who's having to take care of the old person.
100%.
And
Yeah.
so I hope I condense that down into like, you know, so what Max is saying is there's this whole market out there, and he's already written the book, but he'll let you license it, put your own cover on it, title it whatever you want to, change whatever you want to in the book. If you want to change some things or add your own personal, of course you're going to give your own profile, your own thank you, your own dedication, your own preface, whatever. But the work of that book is already done.
Yeah.
The explanation, the coaching, the teaching, all the different scenarios have already been figured out. They're already done. Right. And he's offering you a chance to not only come learn about this demographic and how to navigate it and create win-win situations, make a profit, but also how to help you maybe grab onto this your own book with your own name on it and become that expert a lot easier than having to pound them with, repetition postcards and letters and calls and everything over and over and over again.
Yeah, those, it's our opinion. And like I said, we're going to go deeper in the training, but that's coming up here in the future. But like our opinion is that traditional marketing methods are eventually going to be obsolete. And if we fast forward to 3 or 4 years down the road, I think people look back and say, yeah, that's already common knowledge. So kind of what we're offering people is a way to get in a little bit earlier, because folks are still not figuring it out at all. I talk to some people about this and they get it immediately, like you and others. And then some people just kind of have a blank stare and they can't figure it out, because there's a lot of great companies out there that are, helping investors, agents, and brokers get more leads. Leads is not your problem. It's actually easier to get leads today than it ever has been in the history of marketing, because there's so many different channels that you can reach people at. What's difficult is getting a conversion. It's getting somebody to say yes. Because when, I tell people the reason that I used to have to give out 5 or 7 touch campaigns on my postcards is because intrinsically, just the actual postcard had almost no value. I was just trying to hit a timing bubble and then hope that I could, win a price war that gets more difficult as, Wall Street gets more excited. So this approach that we have is totally different. We position ourselves as teachers, as educators, as people in the local community that are just trying to help. And we share what we do, and we attract people to us that want to work with us. And what's nice is our marketing lasts longer. We can give somebody some of our educational materials that we've already created that we let our students license. And folks will keep it for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 2 years. And because, like right now, somebody may call you and it's a lead, and, before I had a book or any kind of content, I felt like I had to race out to the house, because if I wasn't the first one there or the last one, somebody else was going to get the deal. Now I don't have to do that anymore, because I just say, whoa, have you gotten a copy of our book yet? And they're like, your book? And I go, yeah. I go, we wrote the, step-by-step senior housing guide, but you don't have to be a senior to get benefit from it. Chapter 3 is all the ways to sell your house, pros and cons of each. If I send you an autographed copy today via courier, will you read chapter 3 before I come over? Because I don't want you to make a big, any sort of mistake or, act, hastily. And they're like, they don't know what to say. And they're like, yes. And then what happens is I go, well, do you really need me to come out right now? Is it 911? Or can I come out in a couple of days? They're like, no, a couple of days is fine. And they're like, their tone totally changes from, I'm getting a lot of sellers right now are like the girl who gets asked to prom by 100 people. They're like, they really got kind of an inflated opinion about their house. And we just let them know that where we're at in the market and how we're here to help them. And then we show up 2 days later, they've already read the chapter 3. They've read the whole book. They've seen my personal stories about, dedicating it to my grandma. And they just know, and trust me a lot more. And they're pre-qualified. Now I have to spend money. It costs me $30-$40 to send it via courier. But in this competitive market, to have exclusive deals, to have people call and ask if they're qualified to work with me, that's worth a lot more than $30 or $40. So that's our approach. It's really different. People have never seen it before. They look at it the first time and they're so complimentary. I haven't had one person say, that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard of. They're like, wow, this is genius. Like when I got the award for Innovator of the Year, and I was sharing a stage with Robert Kiyosaki, and he was there, and I got my award, and he was asking me for a copy of my book. I was like, he was like, this is so cool, and it was Innovator of the Year at this conference. I'm like, how is this innovation? Like books have been around for thousands of years. This is not like a brand new concept. I didn't create some cool app or any of that. I just took something that's been around a long time and just applied it to what we do in real estate, just like you've been doing for motivated sellers and for private lenders and now some other people.
You innovated an old idea. All right, my friend. So tell us about the event, and then we're going to wrap up here a little bit. So tell us when, where, what to expect.
Yeah, so it's coming up soon. So just check down below for we'll put the registration links and everything.
Okay, so we're going to go to 1000houses.com / we'll say Max, MAX. Okay, real easy. And that'll get you over the show notes. And over there will be everything and anything you need to know about it, what's going to be covered. And he's got some giveaways or some samples of his stuff. Everything will be over there that you need. And also, if you just need to reach out to him to get clarification or just want to talk to him personally, I'm sure Max will have all the information over there for you. So
yeah,
I appreciate you taking the time to come on, man.
Yeah, me too. It's going to be fun. And if you're looking for just a different way to market for leads, anything that we've talked about has spurred some curiosity, come up to the training. We've got it. It's like I said, it's coming up soon. I have to really limit the number of these I can do because I'm still active in real estate. But, Mitch is a customer and a friend, and I'm looking forward to training y'all what I know, what I've learned in these last, 5 years, and hopefully you can get tremendous benefit from it.
All right. Again, go to 1000houses.com / Max, MAX. Max, I'd like to thank you so much. I can't wait for my book to come out. It should be coming out probably by the end of this month. And I appreciate everything you do for everybody. This is Mitch Stephen with the 1000houses.com podcast. I'm coming to you live from my pickup truck stuck at a ranch someplace. So we're made do. We've got Max on the line, and I want to thank everyone for coming out to get you some Max Keller, and check out Savior Publishing. Just again, go to 1000houses.com / Max. You'll have everything you need to know. All right, Max, we're out of here.
All right, bye.